What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So Stephen Miller just said what a lot of these folks have been thinking but wouldn't dare say out loud, right? That the president has plenary authority. Like, what? The way he froze right after saying it too, like trying to pretend that it was a glitch. Baby, trying to pretend that it was a glitch. That was no glitch, right? That was your truth slipping out. But thank you so much for supporting the channel. I don't take it for granted. Let's watch and we'll be back with some commentary.
The administration won an identical case in the Ninth Circuit just a few months ago with respect to the federalizing of the California National Guard. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me?
For those of you unfamiliar, plenary authority or plenary power means power that is absolute. It's power that is not subject to any checks or balances at all. It's a legal term. So, for example, in the United States, the president of the United States has plenary authority over presidential pardons. There is no one in the United States that can tell any president who they can or cannot grant a federal presidential pardon to, right? Not Congress, not the Supreme Court, no one. The president does not have plenary authority over the military because the president cannot just declare wars wherever he wants. The president cannot just deploy the military en masse and no one at all ever check him on that. That is not a plenary authority that any president has, including the current one. So the fact that Stephen Miller admitted this, you could see on his face, he knew he had up by saying that part out loud. That was very much saying the quiet part out loud, because that means that behind closed doors, the White House sees itself as having dictatorial levels of power. Having a leader with plenary authority across the board, that's called having a king. This is a very, very scary mask-off moment for our country, y'all. But while Stephen Miller said the quiet part out loud on CNN, if you were not watching that interview live, you would have no way of knowing that he said that, because by the time CNN put it up online, they'd edited that part out entirely. So not only do we have a White House that is now saying out loud that they think their power is absolute, we have news platforms that are intentionally obscuring that fact from their audiences. This is horrifying. In fact, apologies if this video is shaking. I am on a road trip at the moment and having to film this in my car, and my hands are literally shaking from how insane this is. So please help me get this information out to folks so that, one, they know that it was said in the first place, and two, they know why it is so scary and what plenary authority means.
You have a Freudian slip on live TV and your instant reaction or defensive reaction to that is, you're not on mute, we can see you blinking, we can see you twitching, we can see you breathing. What the fuck are you doing? Didn't even bother to try and correct himself. He just had a fucking panic attack. Plenary means absolute power. Plenary authority is dictatorship. And he didn't bother to correct himself. Plenty of authority. No, he just...
I say this every time a white person says the N-word and then tries to come back with, like, I was drunk. If you're not saying it, it doesn't just slip out. I'm never worried that I'm going to get drunk and say it. I'm never worried that Mr. Knitting Cult Lady is going to get angry and call me the B word, because he doesn't use that language, right? So clearly, Stephen Miller, and we can then assume the entire Trump team, since he's the chief of staff, is talking about plenary authority. That's what they're going for. But we've known that since day one. You just didn't have that word. Right? I have been saying since the election, he's going to try to be a dictator. He's going to test every check and balance of America, and he's going to try to do all of it. All of it. Yes, he wants plenary authority. Yes, he wants to take all your guns, even though it would take 66 years if we were all lined up right now, and they wouldn't be able to do anything with the mountains that it created, right? Yes, he wants to put all immigrants in camps. Yes, he wants to do all of the shitty things that you think. I don't think he's going to be able to. I do think we're going to be in fascism tug of war for the next 3.5 years, or until we get the big, beautiful burial. I think they are trying. I think we are on a march to dictatorship, and they are trying everything. It is my personal and professional assessment that they will fail, and they have been failing at about 90%. But yeah, marches suck, and it's scary. And Americans right now, white Americans, are learning that you are not guaranteed a government that works for you, or an executive who's not just fully corrupt and wants to be a dictator. And we're going to look a lot more like my example is Brazil. But the Brazil I grew up in the 90s, when this is done. The good news is Brazil rebounded from that and built a stronger democracy than we have from their through the 1980s military dictatorship. And then the next time someone tried to do crazy shit to their country, they put him in prison. Yeah. When their capital was invaded, they arrested all those people same day. Yeah. And now their president is in prison. So we're on this journey. And it's not going to be fun. But we're all in it together. And the one thing we have that no other country that's ever been on this march before has had is 500 million guns. 500 million guns. The only other country that has marched to dictatorship that I'm aware of that has had civilians armed at all is Brazil. And they peacefully took down their dictatorship. We have 500 million guns and a reputation for being loud, colorful assholes that do the exact opposite of what we're told. Can you imagine if they try to vote or intimidate with the military? Can you imagine our response? Start imagining it. Because we might have to get really silly in pushing back on some of this stuff so that we don't have to get really violent. But one way or the other, the people win. There's no scenario in which the people don't win. The question is just how many of us are going to die fighting back. And that's always been the thesis of being an American. At least that's what I was told when I moved here at almost 16, when I was dropped into this country from growing up in an international religious cult in a labor camp with no rights. And I was told the thesis of being an American, the America that I then enlisted in the military and went and fought for, was that when a tyrant comes to take your inalienable rights, which were never inalienable, we pick up our weapons and we go to war against our tyrannical government. And I was the drone manager for a combat brigade, so don't start with me. We had drones and tanks in Afghanistan and we still lost. And we have 13 million veterans in this country whose exact area of expertise is how to beat the United States military with low-tech tactics. Donald Trump has never won at anything in his life. The odds of him winning at taking America by force are very, very low. But every single American, especially every single white American, needs to be asking themselves what they're willing to sacrifice and how they are planning to fight back. Because it might come to that.
I genuinely thought he meant to say plenty of authority, but it was actually a Freudian slip. That was basically saying the president is going to have complete and total control of the military and is basically going to be able to ignore all other types of authority. Like if anyone tells the president what to do, they're basically planning on ignoring any type of outside authority, any type of rules, any type of anything, because the president is just going to be allowed to use the military in whichever way he would like to use them. And the reason why Stephen Miller stopped talking after saying plenary authority is because literally he wasn't supposed to say that. He wasn't supposed to say that, but that's probably what they talk about behind the scenes. Like, oh no, the president's just going to have full and complete and total control of the military and is basically going to ignore authority. Like that must be a part of their plan or something because he just said that so freely. You know what I mean? And I know it was a Freudian slip, but that's just telling us that the president is literally planning on ignoring authority and then using the military as basically his personal power and doing whatever he actually wants to and having complete and total control while literally ignoring any other authority, Supreme Court, any outside place telling him that he can't do X, Y, Z. the president is basically planning on ignoring that and just doing whatever the fuck he wants to do anyway. So that's literally what that meant when he said the president has plenary authority. Yeah, that's insane to me.
That's not a technical difficulty. That is the look of a man shitting his pants. Now, some of you may not be familiar with what plenary authority means, and then that's okay. My friend Miriam's gotcha. It means a complete, absolute, and unqualified authority. And while Kankel's Caligula is a completely and absolutely unqualified authority, that's not what this means. What he accidentally said here is that the president has complete, unquestioned authority to tell the U.S. military to do anything he wants them to do. And that is bullshit. See, right after we fought a whole war on the principle of telling a king to fuck off, the founders gave us a separation of powers in government so no one person would have king-like authority. So this is why it takes an act of Congress to declare war. This is why the judicial branch, judges, get to block unlawful acts by the president. Like when he tries to send the National Guard from other states to go occupy American cities. And there's damn sure nowhere in the Constitution that uses the words plenary, unqualified, absolute, any word of the sort, authority over the military. In fact, quite the opposite. Title 10 in the Constitution, as well as numerous other places, very specifically outline what the president can do with the U.S. military. And even within the limited scope where the president can federalize the National Guard and carry out domestic operations on U.S. soil with it, there are even further limitations within the execution of him doing that. See, governors are the commander-in-chief of their National Guard, so the president needs to go through the governor to give the orders to federalize them. And per the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution, you cousin fucking cosplatrius remember the Constitution, right? It's that document where that "We the People" sticker came from that you were so fond of you stuck it in the back of your clapped out gender affirming Ford. So you just need to go ask the one guy in the trailer park who can kind of read the rest of the document for you. Or not even the rest in this case, just down to the 10th one. This is the States' Rights Amendment. You know, the same amendment you dumb motherfuckers used to justify committing a terror attack and starting a war so you could own people. You know, because you all are such insufferable losers that you needed the government to legally make other people inferior to you to make you feel better about how pathetic you are. That amendment means that the president can't force a governor to follow his orders. See, what happened here when Stephen Miller froze like Grindr does every time Republicans get together is the last canary in our coal mine. He has clearly been talking repeatedly about how the president should have authoritarian power over the military. What these MAGA molesters have been doing over the past decade is slowly normalizing more and more radical and batshit ideas, one little step at a time. So all of these toothless two brain cells fighting for bronze bumfucks are like the frog in the boiling pot of water, getting more and more used to ideas that they would never have been able to stomach, which is why we've worked for, just building the wall, and then increasing ICE and Border Patrol, and then sending ICE into everywhere, and now sending the National Guard into towns, but just after the illegal brown people, getting them okay with each of these things that are absolutely government overreach, to the point where now plenary authority was the final solution, figuratively and probably literally. It's why Fox propaganda has been changing the rhetoric to talk about children in these ICE raids that have been put in danger and zip-tied and handcuffed and separated from their parents as human shields being used to protect, illegal Venezuelan gang members that don't really exist. You see, because inevitably when ICE or the military that is occupying these U.S. cities shoot a child, and they know that this would cause outrage even from likely the most ardent branch Dumbvidians, they're trying to create the rhetoric and the narrative now to justify that eventual inevitability by saying that these people were just being used as human shields by these dangerous illegals, and it's not really ICE's fault, it's not really the National Guard's fault, it's those mythical illegal gang members' fault. And ICE and the National Guard have to be in these cities because they need to be defended from these dangerous terrorists, so that justifies ignoring the law completely, and any collateral damage that happens from your actions is their fault. And if you don't believe me that this is exactly what they're doing, just look at Israel, because Israel is using the exact same propaganda in real time. We had to blow up this school, we had to blow up this hospital, we had to level this apartment building, we had to murder all of the people in this refugee camp because Hamas was hiding there, and they were just using these people as human shields, so it's really Hamas's fault. Remember how Antifa is a terrorist organization now? They're literally just like Mr. Bean over here copying Bibi's homework on this whole propaganda campaign. Because just like they blame Hamas for killing children and blowing up hospitals and doing all of that stuff, they are going to do the same thing here, and they are going to blame Antifa. And the next ingredient in the recipe they stole from Bibi was to add planetary plenary authority and turn up the temperature. However, just like when Nazi Nosferatu watches other men bang his wife, he was a little premature there, and that's why he froze. Because he added it too soon, and now he's afraid that he's gonna burn dinner and the frog is going to jump out of the pot. So for the love of God, guys, jump out of the fucking pot, because if we sit here any longer, we are cooked. If the president is able to execute plenary authority over the U.S. military on U.S. soil, that is it, guys. There's no more checks and balances after that. There's no more off-ramps after that. That's boxcars, that's gas chambers, that's show me your papers, that's barbed wire at the borders, that's hiding children in attics whose diaries will be read by your grandchildren in history class, where they will raise their hand and ask their teachers, how did they ever let this get this far? How did they let this happen? We've been warning you about this for years. This is where it's going. Stephen Miller just confirmed it by accident, and he knew it. That's why he froze. It has gotten to the point where it is them or us, and if we freeze now, it will be us.
Let's be real. People do not accidentally say things like that, right? If you say it, it's because it lives in your mind rent free, and that's what makes this scary, right? These are the people whispering in the president's ear. It's giving soft dictatorship energy, right? But what do you guys think? Do you think that it was really a slip up or a confession? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for tapping when you saw this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on my next one.